Hi, welcome back to Math with Kim. We are moving on this video to solving percentage problems using equations. All right, so a lot of times I know my students say, when will we ever use this? When does this ever get used? And to be honest, this is one of the sections that I will continuously refer to because, yes, in life, maybe it's not written down. 6 is 12% of what number? Or 693 is what percent of 462? Or what number is 33% of 500? You're right. Those probably are not written out. But I can guarantee you're doing these math problems if you ever figured out tip on a bill. What is 20%? What is 15% of a $500 bill that I have to leave? When you're figuring out what percentage the government, the different parts of government are taking out of your paycheck, that is when you see an amount of your paycheck taken out. A lot of times you'll see, oh, the Fed took 1,000 this month, out of this paycheck. So 1,000 is what percent of my total amount of money that I make? Oh, they're taking 20%. Oh, they're taking 22%. Oh, they're taking 11%. These are things that we actually do, and this is one of the ways to figure out, again, sale items, what percentage is off of something. And many people maybe don't think this way, but if anybody cares about their money and wants to know what money is going where and what percentage of their money is going where, this is the section. This is, again, what I consider one of the most real life sections that we run across a lot when it comes to our money. All right, so with that little spiel, let's move on. Here we go. So the key words in our problems are of, is, what number, okay? So of, and I always show my students that you can fill in that O when you see of, and guess what it turns into? Our time sign, right? So of, a percentage of, percent of, percent of, percent of, you're multiplying. All right. And when you see is, or the total, a lot of times I say the total is, or, is the same as, that means equals. Okay. So when you see the word is, usually in a structure of a sentence that you're solving, is will be your equal sign. And then when they say what number or what is or what percentage, that is your unknown. So notice I used X, but it's whatever variable that is your unknown, okay? And of course, for the sake of this, I'm using X. A lot of times I use N also because N represents number, right? And when it says what number. So again, whichever variable you'd like to use, you go right ahead. It's all about your comfort, okay? So let's go ahead and change these words into a mathematical equation, and then of course, because we are going to have equal signs, we're going to solve. All right, so super simple, just follow along. 6, yeah, 6 is just a 6. Is, what does is mean? Equals, put your equal sign. 12%, we can't use 12%. We have to change it to a decimal, and the previous videos show you this. So if you don't know this right away, go and review your videos, please. Your decimal is at the end of this number since we don't see it. And when we're changing a percent to a decimal, we move that decimal 2 places to the left. Or in other words, we divide by 100. So 12% will be written as 0.12, okay? Of, what do we say of is? Times. What number? There's our x. Okay, so now we need to solve. We need to solve to get our unknown, our what number, because that's what we're solving for. We need to get that all alone on its side of the equal sign. But now again, solving equations, if you don't feel comfortable with solving equations, I have a video on solving equations. So I would recommend reviewing it because it shows you many different types of equations, not just these simple basic one steps. So again, here we go. 6 equals 12 hundredths times x. So what is the inverse or the opposite of multiplication? Division. So I'm going to draw my division bar here. I'm going to draw my division bar there. And what am I getting rid of? I'm getting rid of 0.12 because that is what is hanging out with the x. We need to get rid of it. And what I do to one side of my equation, I go over and do to the other side of my equation, right? So we cancel these. And by canceling, because why? Well, because any value divided by itself always equals 1. So this is really 1 times x, which is just x. So we bring down our x, bring down our equal sign. Notice I'm keeping everything very lined up. Again, I emphasize this over and over again in my videos. Be organized, be neat, do your steps. So now, do I want you to divide 6 divided by 0.12 longhand? No. So just quickly go ahead and take your calculator, take 6 divided by 0.12, enter, and we get 50. So 6 divided by 0.12 is 50. Now, what did we just find? Well, we found that 6 is 12% of 50. So in other words, if I had $50 and 12% of it was taken out for Medicaid, that would be $6 from my total paycheck would be taken out for Medicaid. Okay? If Medicaid was 12%. I'm just saying. All right, let's move on to the next type of example. Again, very similar. So we take our 693, bring it down because it's just a number. Is means equals what percent. Now you got to be careful. So far we've been talking about what number, what number, what number. This one says what percent. Now when it says what percent, and this is the only one that you have to do one extra step at the end. And there's other ways to do these problems, but I am just following a uniform step for this. So what percent? So when I see what number, when I write just X. When I see what percent, I write X. And then I write a little percent sign by it to remind myself I've got to do one last step at the very end. I'm going to have to change it to a percentage before I'm completely done. All right. So when I see what percent, I put X and I put a little percentage sign next to it to remind me. Okay. Of, what does of mean? Of means to multiply. So of course we're going to put our multiplication. Now some of you may be thinking, why is she not using X for multiplication? Well, do we see why, right? X is our variable, not being represented for times. So that will represent multiplication. And 462 is just a number. So bring down your 462. So now again, we are looking to solve for our unknown. There is our equal sign. Is anything hanging out with our variable? Yes, 462. What operation is occurring? Multiplication. How do I undo multiplication? I divide. And what I do to one side of my equation, I do exactly to the other side. Okay? So 462 divided by 462 cancels to a 1, just like we wanted. So that means our X, or as I write it, X with the little baby percent sign comes down, equals comes down. And now, of course, let's use our calculator and we will take our 693 divided by 462. So let's double check. 693 divided by 462, enter, and we get 1.5. Great. Normally we would be done, but look what's still sitting next to my x. No, Kim, not 1.5 equals x. I need this to be a percentage. So what's our step to changing a decimal to a percent? We have to multiply that decimal by 100. Or in other words, move our decimal 2 places to the right towards the percentage sign. So this is really 150% is the percentage that we were looking for in this problem. So in other words, it's saying 693 is greater than 462, right? So 693 is 150% of 462. So it makes sense that it's more than 100% because this is more than this value. Okay, so be really careful with percentages too. A lot of people get confused when they get over 100%. It can happen. All right, let's knock out this last one now. So we see what number, so x, that's our unknown, is equals 33%. There's my decimal, move my decimal 2 places to the left. So 33% is 0.33 of, well, that means times 500 comes down. Now look, this problem is my x all alone. Yeah. So I don't have to do any inverse operations like I had to do up in these last 2 examples. X was not alone. X was not alone. But in this case, x is alone. So all I really have to do here is grab my calculator and I just have to do this math. So I take 0.33 times 500. Let's double check our math. 0.33 times 500. Enter. 165. So in this case, we didn't have to do any inverse operations or anything like this. It was pretty straightforward because they were sitting right next to each other. So this is one of the reasons that I very much like this section to be done this way. There is another option that you can set up proportions and solve, but the reason I like to fall back on this, be changing our word sentences into mathematical sentences, because they're simple, basic, one-step operations to simplify, and following the pattern of the words makes this extremely flexible for all types of problems.